Hello, my name is Rob Richards, owner of Rocky Mountain Sewing and Vacuum in Colorado. Once again, I'm joined by Megan McCabe, our YouTube personality, event coordinator, training manager for the company, and all-around super genius.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for joining us for our second day on Long Arm Week of our Holiday Quilt Show sale.
Yes, I can't wait to see what we have to offer here. HandiQuilter is known for being really one of the biggest names in long arm quilting in our industry. They're out of Utah, and we have them at all of our stores, different variations. And so who are we introducing today?
So Shauna Westergaard is one of HandiQuilter's national educators, and she is awesome. She actually helped us back in April if you were here for the warehouse moving sale. So she's got a fun thing that she's going to show us on the HandiQuilter Moxie XL machine, which is such a cool machine. So we'll go ahead and hand it over to her, and we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Yeah, don't forget to stay until the end. I have a special announcement that I forgot to announce last video.
You don't want to miss it.
Stay tuned.
Hi, I am Shauna Westergaard, and I'm a HandiQuilter national educator, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Moxie XL. And we're going to go over this machine, and then we're going to have a fun little project for you guys. So the Moxie is one of my absolute favorite machines. It's a really good beginner machine, and it's a really affordable price point too. So when we're done here, you guys can talk with Megan about the options that they have for this machine. This is our Moxie XL. It has 18 inches of throat space, which is perfect. You can do a lot of free motion quilting with it. You get a really good amount of throat space, but you can also run Pro Stitcher on it, and you can do ruler work on it. So this really is a very versatile machine. It's really incredible. Today I'm going to be using just so fine thread. That's what I love to use, but you can use whatever thread you want. These machines will work with all types of thread, so that's not an issue. And when you buy these machines, they do come with a couple cones of thread of different types of thread. Most of them come from, actually all of them come from Superior Threads just in the box. So that's a good thing to know. You also get a bunch of pins. They're long corsage pins. I'll show you. We've got some right here. We have these long corsage pins. These come with the machine when you purchase it as well. So you're going to be able to start right out of the box, that you can set up your machine and get quilting right away, because the pins are how we attach the quilt backing and the quilt top to our leaders, and then you're good to go. So we also have a really fun feature on this machine. On this side of the machine, there's actually a magnet, so I can keep my scissors right here on the side of the machine so you don't lose them. That's really great, and you can just pull them off and snip threads whenever you need to. I love that there's a magnet here on the machine now. And this machine, you can see I have two tablets here. This smaller tablet in the front is just our touch screen to control the machine, and this one is, it has your stitch length. You can control the needle up or needle down. You can look at your stitches, the lifetime stitches on the machine. That's what this one is for. This bigger tablet is actually for Pro Stitcher. On this machine, we use Pro Stitcher Light, and that's for the carriage specifically. The light means that it's a lighter carriage for our machines that are a little bit lighter. But we're not going to be playing with Pro Stitcher today. You're going to have to come back if you want to do that, because Megan's got a couple of different segments going on. So today we're going to be playing with our Moxie. It does do 2,100 stitches per minute, which is really incredible. I love the speed on this machine too. It's a really good heavy-duty machine for its price point. Okay, I'm going to show you here on my quilt top. We've got everything loaded already. I just have a backing here, and then I've got my batting, and I'm just using a regular 80-20 batting. We're just going to make a simple little table runner today, but I wanted to show you, a lot of times we will talk about having a long arm is just for doing quilts, but that's not necessarily the case. You can do a lot of smaller projects on it. And when I had my machine, my very first machine, I ended up doing something like 60 projects in the first year that I had it. And this is how I ended up doing so many projects. It's because I was doing a lot of small things to learn the techniques and get used to the machine. So before we start, there is one more thing I want to show you. I'll bring the machine back over here to show you the ruler base that I have on. And this ruler base is specifically for using rulers to do ruler work. I'm not going to be doing ruler work today, but I left this base on because it's kind of giving me a sturdy little desk that I can work on as I'm placing my pieces that we're going to be doing. We're building the cable runner directly on the long arm, and so this is going to create a nice foundation for me to just put things down and play with where I'm placing them. It does create a tiny bit of drag on the machine, on the fabric, but it's not noticeable. And so you can actually quilt with your ruler base on as you're doing free motion quilting or anything else. It's not going to be an issue. We also have the foot that we're using today is just the regular closed-toed foot. We do have 2 feet that come with this machine. It's a closed toe and an open toe foot. If you're going to do something like ruler work, then you need the sure foot. That one is an extra foot to purchase, but it is essential if you're going to be doing ruler work. If you're doing a lot of edge-to-edge designs, I would suggest getting the glide foot. We have a lot of different feet, and it's really cool because any foot that you purchase for any of our machines are interchangeable. So if you buy a Moxie and you buy all these feet to use on your machine, and then you end up thinking, you know what, I want to go big or go home. We're going to get the infinity. I want all the throat space. You can keep all the feet. You can keep all the rulers. They work interchangeably between the machines, which is really incredible. They even work on our stationary machines too. So we have a new machine out. The Moxie is on a stationary table now that you can get. So check with Megan if you have any questions about that. All right, so what I'm going to do is just show you a fun way to use up extra blocks. I have a quilt pattern that I was playing around with, and I had a bunch of these extra leaves because I was playing with the different fabrics. And I am going to turn them into a table runner so that we can use it for Thanksgiving. You know, Thanksgiving's coming up. It's just right around the corner. We're going to have a fun little table runner that we can put out when we have Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm kind of just placing the leaves and playing with where I want them to be. All I've done is taken the leaves. These are 6.5-inch blocks. And I've added this section here is 3.5 by 6.5 inches. So it just makes it a little bit bigger. And then I have a bunch of different strips of fabric. This one is 1.5 inches wide. And then I have some that are 3.5 inches wide. And what I'm going to do is build this table runner directly here on the long arm. And this is a great way to do, again, like I said, little projects, but we also have channel locks. So channel locks are something that do come with Pro Stitcher, but you can get these channel locks here. This comes with the machine. You'll get 1 channel lock so that you can put this directly on the carriage, and this will actually lock it in place so you can stitch a straight line without needing to do any rulers. You're not going to need to use the Pro Stitcher because this channel lock will work for the X and the Y axis. You can use it horizontally and vertically, which is perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and start. The first thing I'm going to do, I've kind of eyeballed where I want this to be. I'm going to have this here to be kind of like my edge, my border, and then I'm going to attach this one on it. And some people think, how in the world are we going to do this and make it look nice? It's because I'm working in strips and I'm working from left to right. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this one down first. And I'm using 12 stitches per inch. That's kind of the sweet spot for me, 12 stitches per inch. You can go all the way down to 4 stitches per inch on this machine. And so you can do a basting stitch with it. Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to stitch down. Awesome. And you can see I've got this long piece of fabric. I am not being particularly exact, which is okay because I'm just kind of playing around. If I need to be very exact, again, we can use our channel locks and we could put a plumb line at the top. That's where we just take our machine, put on the channel lock and stitch across the top to give us a plumb line. I wanted to make sure we had time to play here. So I've got this stitched down just on one side. See, it's still free. I'm going to bring my leaf and place it here. I think that looks great. That's right where I want it. So I'm going to place it right sides together. And this is where, if you want it to be really, really exact, you can use one of the feet. We have a foot that is a 1/4 inch foot that's square. And that one I will use for doing binding. You can do binding directly on the long arm. I use it for doing projects like this, where I want to make sure that the edge of my fabric lines up with the foot, and then I get an exact 1/4 inch seam. I'm just going to stitch down like this. And if I need to reposition, I keep my hand here on the handlebar because the buttons on the handlebars are how I control the machine. And so I have my play and my pause button here on the right-hand side, so I keep my right hand on my machine as I'm manipulating my fabric. So I pause the machine as I reposition and have it where I want. And then I can keep stitching. Oh, I'm going to push the needle up button. So when I'm doing a lot of free motion quilting, I prefer to have my needle stay down in the fabric when I'm done sewing or done quilting. That allows me to have better control of the machine. And so you'll notice when I'm done stitching, the machine will actually, I've got a little thread stick. The machine will actually stop with the needle down. Okay, so we've got this one placed right where we want it. And now I can come with my scissors and just trim off this excess. Perfect. And it's not going to be even. I'm not really terribly worried about it because I'm going to come back and trim it off where I want it to be. I want to make sure I move them out of my way as I'm stitching. Now I'm going to use my 1.5 inch strip. I think I want a more narrow piece of fabric in between here. Place this. Okay, and when I'm doing this, I always make sure to pull up my bobbin thread. If you leave your bobbin thread on the bottom of the quilt, it's not a huge issue. It just means that you're going to have a lot of trimming you have to do when you take your project off of your long arm. So I would really encourage you to try and pull your bobbin thread up. That's the best way to do it. Okay, I'm going to stitch down. So this machine comes with, or is equipped with, 2 different modes for stitching. I'm currently in precision mode. This needle up. Now, this is how we pull up the bobbin thread. I swing away. I have my thread right here. I grab it with my finger, pull back forward again, and then I push the button for needle down, needle up, and I swing away again, and here it's picked up my bobbin thread. So now I'm holding the top thread and I'm holding the bobbin thread, and I can trim both of them, and then I won't have any thread on the bottom of the quilt. It is perfect. Less work for me, right? So we've got this tiny strip here. I'm going to come and fold it over just how I want it. And then I'm going to put this leaf face down, right sides together. And if you're worried that you're not going to have enough seam allowance, you can always take a bigger chunk. You don't have to have a 1/4 inch seam, especially when you're doing this kind of quilting, right? This is building your project directly on the long arm, and so you have control of the seam allowance. You can see exactly how much fabric will be in the seam allowance as we're going. So I think I'm actually going to trim this first though, because I'm going to use it again on the other side of this leaf block. So I'll trim this. Perfect. Now some of you may be really struggling with this because some of us prefer to have everything exact. If that is the type of quilter that you are, never fear, you can still build your quilt top on a regular domestic machine, be really exact with your seams and your points, and then bring it over and quilt it just like you would a regular quilt. And after we get this all built, we can do some free motion stitching to finish the project. It's already kind of quilting itself because we're creating seams in the project. But then we can do some fun quilting too. So, all right, we're gonna fold this over. Oh, look, that's so cute with that little thin strip there. I absolutely love that. Okay, we're gonna put, this again is 1.5 inches wide. We're gonna put that here. And you can see I came up a little bit higher here. So it gives me flexibility for where I want to trim and where I wanna put my binding. But if that's gonna bug you, you can definitely trim it to size before we start. So these are, let's see, 6.5 inch blocks, and then I added 3.5 inch dashing on one side of them. So 9.5 with the seam allowance. So it's funny, sometimes I'll talk to my husband about quilt math and I'll say, okay, so this block is 6.5 and this sashing is 3.5. And then I'll say, so that equals 9.5. And he says, no, it doesn't. And then I have to say, but that's quilt math. Quilt math does equal 9.5. So very entertaining. And you can see that I just really do stop and start as often as I need to reposition to make sure I'm happy with where I'm at. I can also pin directly on here. I'll show you what that looks like on this next section. Hold on. Pull the needle up, I swing away, grab my bobbin thread or my top thread, come forward, and I hit the needle down, needle up button. Pulls up my bobbin thread, and then I can trim both at the same time. Okay, I'm going to show you what it looks like with pinning, because I'm sure some people are saying, well, can I pin it? What does it look like for that? So I'm going to use the long pins that actually come with your long arm. And I'm just going to put this, so we have 2 leaves here. This is the 1.5 inch section. And I'm going to put this right side together here. And if I'm worried about, let's say I'm worried about the bottom moving too much, I'll pin it where I want, and I'm going to pin through all 3 layers of the quilt sandwich just to hold it in place like that. Ready to go. So I'm going to come here and stitch down. Needle down, needle up, and then I pull away. This is how I pick up my bobbin thread, remember? There have been several times as I was learning to quilt that I did not pull up my bobbin thread, and you end up with long strings along the back. And I mean, you can make it work, but if you're not paying attention, then it takes a lot of unpicking or, careful snipping to get that thread out. And you can see I'm just moving really careful. I'm even holding my seams open as I stitch. I'm not too worried about getting close to the machine, the foot, because I'm moving slow. I would not put my fingers here if I were moving fast, or if I'm doing any type of edge-to-edge quilting, anything like that. Now that I'm coming to the needle, or sorry, the pin, I'm going to pull it out because I don't want to stitch over it. And I'm going to hold it here, and then I can keep stitching. Perfect. Swing away. We're going to lift up the bobbin, the top thread, to lift up the bobbin thread. Needle down, needle up. Pull forward. Snip. Okay, and then on our last end here, I'm going to go ahead and do my 3.5 inch piece. And I kind of like the idea of doing fast projects like this because usually I don't know how everyone else handles it, but usually I'm like, oh, great, I'm having a party. It's Thanksgiving. I'm having a party. People are coming over. Oh, I think I want a new table runner. Or, oh, I think I need some new placemats. So I end up trying to make something just a couple of days before I have the party. And that's why I do a lot of fast projects like this, because they end up looking really cute and they use up orphan blocks. I know that a lot of quilters will try a new block and then you get into the project and you either change fabrics or you were just using that block, to test the dimensions of the quilt block, whatever it is. And you end up with a lot of orphan blocks that just don't have anywhere to be. So they make great table runners. You can also do it like this and make hot pads on your long arm. If you're going to do that, I do recommend that you try and get batting that is specifically for heat. There is a batting that you can buy, and I'm drawing a blank now, but I know it's for, you can make like microwave bags out of it, which I've done before, like potato microwaving bags. And I'm just stitching down this final inch here so that we have everything in place. Swing away, pick up my bobbin thread, needle down, needle up. Here we go. We've got our cute little table runner here. And this throat space, again, this is an 18-inch throat space, so you can get some really good widths for table runners. I'm just keeping this a little bit small for the space I'm going to put it in, but also for demoing, it's easier for you guys to see what I'm working on. So I'm just kind of trimming things up here, wanting to make sure that I have all of my threads out of the way, and then I'm going to show you some fun free motion quilting on this. Perfect. Right. When it comes to free motion quilting, you're going to want to be in, I prefer to be in cruise mode, but you really can do either mode, precision or cruise. Precision works really well for ruler work, but you kind of just learn what mode you like the most, the more that you quilt. So I would suggest when you get your long arm that you just kind of play around with it and see what we have, like, which mode is most comfortable for you. So I've got my 2 threads pulled up, I pull them out of the way, and then I like to look at my design of my project and think about where I want to stitch. I think I'm going to do kind of a basic stipple in here, because this fabric works really well for learning a stipple. You can see there's little clusters of these pluses. And as I'm trying to stipple, I can swing around the plus clusters, these little clusters. I can swing around them and it's going to help me learn to get a nice stipple. And so I think I'm going to try that. And then when I get to this leaf, I'm going to figure out, like, this is why I stand and look at the project before I start, because when I get to this leaf, I want to do some quilting in the leaf. But I don't know, I think I'll probably do some cute little arcs in the leaf like this. So I have to pick where I'm going to start. And I generally like to start in corners. You can start wherever you want, but this makes it easier for traveling. So I think I'm going to come to the corner of the leaf to do my stitching there. So let's practice. Which I want to cruise to show you guys the difference. So I've been in precision mode the whole time. So now I'm going to be in cruise so that you can see the difference. So I'm going to just be stitching around, trying to go around the different clusters. And this is a great way to learn how to do a stipple. Don't be afraid to wiggle around. It's okay if your design or your stitch path crosses over itself, because you have to learn your own rhythm for when it comes to free motion quilting. And some of these little clusters are too close together. Some of them are nice and far apart how I want it to be. So I'm just kind of spacing around. And you also want to think, as you're doing this, you want to think about doing full C's, like the shape is the shape of a C, and then doing more, like you can curve around and do little S shapes. And that's how you can kind of build a unique stipple as you go, to add a couple of different curves. So I'm going to come up here to the stem. I've already decided that's where I want to jump on and work on the leaf. So I'll come right here to the corner, and I think I want to stitch on the sides of the block, outline the block first, and then go in and do a couple of different stitches. So I'm just going to free motion it. Don't be afraid to try free motion. It's not going to be exact the first time that you do it, but it's really important that you play with free motion quilting so that you get used to the machine and you get comfortable with it. Plus, stitching in the ditch just makes it look so much more finished. It looks really beautiful. Okay, so I've done stitching around my leaf like this. And now I think I'm going to come down on the side and move around the block this way. You can go right or left, clockwise, counterclockwise, it doesn't matter. Just whatever's comfortable for you. So now I'm going to start doing my little arcs. And you can see it kind of gives it a little more of a leaf feel when you add those arcs in like that. So we're going to come back out here to the top. I'm going to do a little bit of stippling around this way and come do the same thing on this leaf. And the thread that I'm using right now, again, it's a so fine thread. I'm using one that kind of blends, but I also have fabric that is kind of busy. And so it's a great option to use white thread because it'll blend really well and you won't be able to tell much of a difference if you're not getting very straight lines. Because we all know when we're learning, we don't do straight lines, and that's okay. So I'm just outlining around the leaf here. And then I'm going to come back down to this part and I'm going to start my arcs. And this is where you really want to play with it. You can change the shape of the arc that you're doing, and you'll notice how it kind of changes the feel of the leaf. So I like to come back up to where I started. I like to start and end in the same point, especially when I'm doing free motion quilting, because then I can pick up the same thread path and continue on and make it look really seamless. And we're working on our stipple here. Sometimes as you're learning a stipple, you'll have really big curves and then really small curves, and that's okay. You have to kind of figure out the sweet spot for you, what you like and how it's going to look. Okay, I'm stopping here to look because I planned my thread path here. I know that I'm gonna wanna come into the leaf here, but I've already stitched all of this. So I'm probably gonna come around here this way and fill in everything else here and come to the stem of the leaf here. That way, it'll be all finished and I can cut my thread when I'm done with the leaf. Make sure your other fabric is out of the way when you do this. And I'm also making sure to use very light pressure on the handlebars. I'm not doing a death grip because that's going to wear you out really quick. You want to try and be as ergonomical as possible. So I'm using a really light grip. I am using both hands on the handlebars. And then when I need to, I can stop and readjust, keeping my thumb where I want it to be. Okay, back here. And now I'm going to just take a quick pause, look where we want to be, and then we're off again. Just outlining the leaf. And you can see how really quickly this project is coming together. The only prep work that I did beforehand was that I just had these leaves that were already made. So this is a really fun, fast project. Another way to have blocks ready is if you have a quilt pattern that you really like, just make a few extra as you're making the quilt, and you can turn them into to pillows, to pillow covers. You can turn them into like decals on a tote bag. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. So I'm doing a couple stitches all in the same place to tie off. I'm going to swing away, come back, needle down, needle up. Here we go. So now we have a finished project. And you can also do binding directly on the long arm. If you have your binding ready, you can just stitch it down, what that looks like. I'm not going to do it with this because I want to have a nice little border type binding, but I'll show you here. You just fold your fabric, stitch it, iron it, press it like you normally would. And then when you're going to attach it, you literally just place it here and you can come stitch down. The really cool thing about these feet is that the needle is exactly a 1/4 inch away from the edge of the foot. So I just put this at the edge of the fabric and I can stitch down, and you fold your fabric out of the way and then do the corner fold, and then you just keep going. So binding on the long arm is a really cool thing too. All right, I think that's about the time for our segment. If you have any questions, make sure and check with Megan. She's going to be able to answer all of your questions about the Moxie. It's a really great machine, and it's really a good price point to start with too. So back to you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Shauna. That was so fun. I can't believe you can do that on the Moxie XL.
It's amazing.
I know. Oh my gosh. So one thing that's really fun to find out is, how have you guys been quilting your quilts at home? Leave us a comment below, because I know I struggled on a little 6-inch throat space machine for a little while. So it's pretty fun to see what everybody's setups are or what their dream setup is. So let us know, because it's a great week for that, right?
Yeah, and we always, when I talk to customers on the phone with the online sales or in the store, I always mention that a long arm frame is like drawing on a piece of paper rather than moving the piece of paper to draw. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that all the time.
It makes people's lives so much better, so much easier with stitch regulation and having a frame. I think it's pretty amazing. So I have a little announcement that I promised at the beginning. We are going to give away, you ready?
I'm ready. Are you?
Brother 1850D. We're going to give away one of those. So if you're at our local stores, they'll have a drawing box. Come in during this entire 5-week campaign.
Yeah.
Put your name in there. We'll be giving one of those away at the very end of it in December. And also, we have special pricing. Like I always say at these videos, we're not allowed to talk about pricing, bundles, anything like that with these because they're protected products online. But trust me, we have amazing prices, packages. We have, if you're local, we have options for setup and delivery.
Yes.
We want to take away any obstacle that has been keeping you from buying a long arm machine. We have special no interest and low interest financing. We have it all because this is our Quilt Show holiday pricing event.
Yes.
We're excited.
Yes, we are. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We actually have Shauna coming back tomorrow to talk more about Pro Stitcher.
Yes.
So you want to make sure you stay tuned tomorrow, and we'll see you then.
We'll see you then.